Hi, I'm Sharon and this is Trio.of.Witches Tarot. And this is going to be a video about my deck mods. I'm not going to be showing all of the decks I've edged, especially not the ones that I've edged in black, because yeah, they're in black. But I will be showing some of the ones I've done in different colors and in different finishes. And so here I have an assortment of my most used tools, pens. I don't use ink pads. I know some people do. I just haven't tried that yet. Markers seem to work so far for me just great. So yeah, if you're going to be trimming decks, I don't have a picture of one, but you need a good guillotine cutter for the most part. Some of the really thin decks, you might want to use one of the ones that has the wheel and a corner rounder. This is a really nice one because it has three different sizes of corners, and then a bunch of different kinds of markers. Copic, Prismacolor. These are highlighters, but they are kind of sparkly, so they're kind of nice to put on top of a color, or just if you want a really faint color on the edge. These Artist Loft markers are really nice, and these metallic pens are nice. And I also use, haven't included here, gel pens when I'm writing on a deck, or that's just a pen, or you know, these fine tipped Sharpies. I haven't tried using the photograph tinting markers yet, although someone told me that those work great too when you're trying to write on the face of cards. So let's get to some different things I've done. So these metallic markers, let's start with those. These are really cool, and they have brush tips. I love brush tips and chisel tips for doing edging. I don't really like the tip on a Sharpie, a regular Sharpie, because it's just a little too short and squat, and it slips off the card a lot, in my experience anyway. So a few decks that I've edged with these metallic markers. So the first one is this Circle of Life Tarot. It's a round one, and I edged it with the purple. It comes out really nice. You have to do at least 2 coats with these pens. The first coat seems to kind of want to lay down that metallic, so whatever the metallic base is for the color. In most of them it's silver, so you end up with just silver, and then the next coat kind of starts laying down the color. Might even give this another coat. So that's what it looks like when it fans out. And it is very forgiving. Like, I still have some where it's smeared onto the front, and it still just wipes right off. But it seems to stay on the edges really nicely. It just doesn't stick to the laminated finish. And then this is my Soul Cats, which I edge with this metallic blue. And I really like the way that came out too. It just looks so nicer when you fan it out than it is with the white edges. And then when you flip it, I really like the way these metallic markers come out. And then this is the Light Seers, which I edged with this green metallic. Tried to match that green there as well as I could. And I like the way that came out too. I like that a lot. I know that the Indie was more of a bright green edge, and I could have done it, I suppose, if I wanted that with this lighter green. I haven't used this one yet, so I don't know how it comes out. And then this is my Bohemian Animals Tarot, which I trimmed and edged. So I edged it using this, I guess it's bronze. It doesn't have names of colors on it, so it's that color from the pack. And I think it needs one more coat because this one really has that silver that got laid down on it and isn't covered up yet. So I also trimmed it. It had large white borders, I believe. And so I trimmed it to the black frame around each picture. And now it's pretty much just regular tarot size. And then the back, because it's just like an ombre, there was no border or anything. You can't even tell that's been trimmed on the back. So that is my trim and edging of the Bohemian Animals. And this is the Vintage Wisdom Oracle. And this one I trimmed. So I think I forget what color border was on the back. I think it was, each of them had like a colored border. They have different colors on the front. So it's still larger than a tarot. It's still oracle sized. And then I edged it with the metallic marker, the darker bronze, I think. But I like it that it looks antique-y along with it. So that is my trim and edging with a metallic marker on the Vintage Wisdom Oracle. Sparkle markers. So they have a tip like that, and this one is really chewed up. I've used the purple a lot. You know, it's one of those ones you gotta pump to prime. I don't know. So the first one I did is the Oracle of Echoes. It's the second edition. And I edged it first in a dark purple, and then I went over it with the sparkly purple, and I don't know if in this lighting you can even tell. I can tell, but the camera may not be picking it up. And then another one I did is the Super Lunaris. So this is the one that had the rose gold edges. It has a little bit of a story. I lost 2 cards, tried to get replacements. It took several times before I got the right ones. And then they weren't exactly the same size, and the rose gold, it was a used deck anyway. The rose gold was a little bit worn, so I micro trimmed it. Not my best job. And then I edged it in a lighter purple to go with this back. And then I put the sparkly purple on top. And I just don't think the camera's picking up the sparkles very well. They aren't super prominent. Anyway, so that is my very minimal trim. It's only minimally smaller than a regular tarot. And then this is one of my Magpie 78 tarot decks. And I edged it with this marker, which is a metallic paint pen. And it has a big tip on it. And it's, again, one of those kind you have to shake and press it down to pump the ink. And it does, because the tip is so big, have a tendency to kind of go over the edges. Don't know if you can tell here on some of the green ones, it's more evident. And on the front, you can see it. But it's not bad, in my opinion. And then that's what the edges look like. They are much closer to looking gilded than with those other metallic markers. But it is much messier to work with. But it looks really nice, and it does give it a really smooth finish. Like it coats it more than just putting ink on it. So yeah, that's with one of these metallic paint pens. And this is the Everyday Enchantment Tarot, which I trimmed to make it a little bit smaller. I didn't trim all the color off the borders on the other side. You'll see, cut off a little bit of the heads here, and it kind of just cut off the antennae of the moths there. And I edged it in this really electric turquoise color, kind of to go with that back. I like the way it looks when it gets fanned out. And then on the front, the trim. So I left some of the colored border. I didn't dislike the colored border. It was really big, and the deck was gigantic. It's still really big. This is an oracle-sized tarot. And I recently saw someone, some video, can't recall who, and they had trimmed all of the color off of the top and bottom, the top and the sides, and left just enough for the titles on the bottom. And that looked nice too. I thought about that, but then I really didn't want to mess up the backs any more than I already was, because the backs are so beautiful. So that's the Everyday Enchantment. So this is the Bonefire, and I just trimmed this. It's hard to tell, I think. I just trimmed this a little bit to make it not quite as wide. It was just a little wide for me, and it had just a lot of extra black. I don't think I made it any shorter, did I? I did not. Just to make it a little skinnier. That's all I did. You can see the difference on the backs there. So if you didn't have that for a comparison, I don't think you'd know. And I left a little bit of black. I didn't take it all off on the sides. So, and then I edged it black, just with a Sharpie. And I edged the the Song of the Grandmother's Oracle, I edged it in an orange to match the cells. So when you fan it out, it sort of blends in with the edges that go in there. And that was, but it's this orange, it's a Pitt Artist Brush Pen Brush Orange Glaze 113. So it has a brush tip. It's a smaller brush tip, but it's still nicer. Still worked really well. It was easy to use. So that's what I used on my Song of the Grandmothers. And then we have Jumble Dance, which is it's a big deck. Maybe we can tell from this. So it used to be as big as this box. And then I trimmed it down. I forget what color the borders were around it, but so on the front I trimmed it back to because they all have like I guess it must have been a dark border and I just left a teeny bit of it. And then on the back, on the sides, it went down to up to the blue. I cut more off the sides than I did the top and bottom, I think. So it's the front of it. And then I edged it, and because the back has this brown and then blue, I edged it like that, so the top and the bottom are brown and the sides up to the corners are blue. And I really like the way that came out. And so the wisdom of the depths, all I did was edge this one also. I edged it in 3 different colors. I like the way it came out. It's fun. So it's in and I don't remember which markers I used, but it's in a pink and a blue and a purple. And this is the For Haxa Tarot, which I edged in 3 different colors of blue. I don't know how well it's going to show up. I never found a blue maybe it's a green. I never found a color that exactly matched that, but I like the way the blue came out. I like that it's 3 different colors. And the blues were this denim of the Artist Loft alcohol based, and then this one is just blue, and then this one is Oxford blue. So this is the lovely Om Tarot, which I have trimmed and edged. So it was a bigger deck, had about this thickness of this colored border all the way around. And it was just made it really big and kind of unwieldy. So I also edged it in 2 shades of purple. Kind of like that. It gives it sort of an ombre-y. And I left just a teensy bit of border on the front. And thankfully, this artwork was very well centered and all equally sized. So super easy to trim. I'm not one of those ones where I had to calculate every card to make sure I had at least semi-equal borders on the front. And then the back, because it's just this field of purple, there's no harm, no foul on the backs. And this is the Margaret Peterson, another really big, really unwieldy deck. And I do have the anniversary edition with the burgundy borders that I have not trimmed. This one is trimmed and I edged it in multicolors, 6 different colors, I think. And I trimmed it a lot. I left just enough gray on the bottom here to write in my own titles, because it was still going to leave, there's like this much again where the title was. And the backs are that, so there's no telling that even happened. I think this is the one that had the white border around it too. So that's the Margaret Peterson. And then this is the Philarkos Tarot, which is another large deck. I think the cards used to be as big as the book. And now they're closer to tarot size. They're still wider. I think they might actually be a little bit shorter now. And then they had a bigger white border, which wasn't unattractive. It's just the cards were so big. And they're kind of slippery, so it was like I couldn't hold on to them, and they were always flying everywhere. And I think it looks nice now with the borders trimmed off. And on the back, not my favorite back ever. Yeah, so now it's manageable size. This is the Vedi Tarot, one of my largest decks. The cards, let's put my hand on there, they're very big. There's 2 cards in here that this is just has a code for the guidebook, and it's in Portuguese. So I trimmed it, most of the white off of the back. So it's that much smaller. Hope you can tell. But flip it over, maybe you can tell better. So it's that much smaller. Still really big, but there was no trimming it anymore. So on the front, so it was a difficult trim. Yeah, that's something to keep in mind if you start trimming, is that you kind of want to go through your deck and really measure and see, you know, is the artwork all exactly the same size? And if not, and is it all exactly aligned the same? You know, is the border the same on all sides on all of them? Because if not, you're going to have to figure it out. So that's the Vedi Tarot. And another large deck is the Enchanted Tarot. This is the 25th anniversary edition with these backs. I haven't edged it yet. I'm thinking about edging it though with one of those metallic markers to match that pattern. And this one has very large colored borders on it. And I like the colored borders. It's just, again, the deck is so large. It's still really big. But so I cut off as much as I could on the top. I left the titles on the bottom, cut off just to the bottom of it, and cut off the sides a lot. And on the back, you know, you can't tell. I've seen some people do like multicolor edges. I don't like to give away too much when I'm looking, you know, from the backs of cards or when they're fanned out. I don't want to know what suit I'm getting or anything. So that is the Enchanted Tarot. And then this is the Stolen Child Tarot. And so it used to be that big. And now it's that big. And those are the differences on the backs. So I was very careful not to cut into the actual art and just cut off this extra green around the back of it. It's an extra art card. I didn't trim it. And it had very large white borders. You can see there's still a lot of white, which I like. I didn't dislike that there was a white border. It was just, it was a lot. And now it's basically tarot size, and I really, really like it. So that's the Stolen Child. And this is the Radiant Tarot, which I trimmed quite heavily. So there was a very large white border, because this is what the artwork is left. I don't have an example card for you, but it was very big. And on the backs, it just ended up cutting off on the sides, some of the sun rays. Just mine. It's still pretty much a tarot size. It's just a little bit skinnier, but I think the height is the same as a regular tarot. This one was more of a pain because the artwork was not the same size on every card and was not as well centered necessarily. And so it was much more of a pain to trim, to try and get it to not cut into the artwork. So I had to find one with the largest artwork and go from there for the size. But it's fine. If you didn't know, I don't think you would notice. I barely notice, and I'm kind of OCD about this kind of things. So that's the Radiant Tarot. And lastly, we have 3 decks that I trimmed pretty much the same. So we have the Ashley Cook, the Tarot by Alexander Daniloff, and the Imaginarium. So we'll start with the Alexander Daniloff. So this one used to be this big. So I trimmed it down a lot. And so now it's kind of Fournier size. And it had larger white borders around it, which I didn't love. And I don't know, I just thought it would be so cute if it was trimmed to the frames and then left square cornered, pointy cornered. So I don't know, I feel like it gives it, because the art feels so old world to me, that having it be this square. So that is the Tarot by Alexander Daniloff. And those are what the backs look like now, and that's what they looked like before. Then we have the Ashley Cook, which again was just regular tarot size. We'll use this as an example. And had a large white border, so it kind of looked like that on the back. And same on the front, so it would have looked like that. And I didn't love it. I would have loved it if it had been black. If the border had been black, that would have been perfect. So on the back, I just trimmed it up to that black, and I trimmed it up to the black frame on the front. And now it is also a nice little Fournier size. It wasn't as vibrant with the white border. I don't know what to say. So that's the Ashley Cook. And then we have the Imaginarium, this way. And same thing. The backs look like that. They were never reversible, so didn't even have to worry about it. And it's just a field of dark blue. And again, big white border, so if we compare it, we can put it on here and you can get an idea of what that would have looked like. And again, I don't hate borders. I just would prefer if they were smaller. So, and this artwork and how charming it is and adorable. I guess adorable is, I think that the smaller size with this adorableness of this art just really fits. So that was the Imaginarium. And then the Tarot of the Star Pound Fantasia is by the same creator as the Ellis deck. And this one is a mashup of Thoth and Marseille and RWS. But there are no numbers because Marseille, and then on the court cards there were no names. And so I was having a hard time knowing which was the king or the knight or the daughter or hard to see that one. Anyway, so I just put the letters on those and the numbers on those for the minors. And then if we get to the majors, page, queen. And this I just used gel pens, different colored gel pens, depending on what would best stand out on the background. And then on the fronts, so the guide, there is a PDF guidebook with this. And it just has a few keywords for each card. And I think it was on Marlena Teresa. She had a deck that she inherited from her mother-in-law. And her mother-in-law had written around the borders keywords and etc. And I thought that was so charming. And then I just thought with this, some of the keywords that were in the guidebook were not keywords that I would traditionally have used. Some of them are, some of them are not. I didn't write anything on the wheel. And so I just had some fun incorporating the keywords into the cards. And I like it. Didn't put anything on death. Is that it? For the sun, blessings and triumph. Like, I don't think those two words come to mind for me for that, but now they do. So anyway, that is the Tarot of the Starbound Fantasia. So that was the majority of my deck mods. A lot of them are just edging, and we could go over that all day. I edge a deck any chance I get. So I hope you enjoyed that. Remember to like and subscribe and click on the bell so you know when I have new videos. Take care of yourself and have a great day. Bye.